The summer of 1998 arrived quietly in the small town of Cedar Falls, Iowa. It was the kind of place where people knew each other's names, where neighbors waved from their front porches, where children rode bicycles until the streetlights came on, and where secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. At least, that was what everyone believed. On Maple Street stood a modest white house with blue shutters. Fresh flowers lined the front porch. A wooden swing gently moved in the warm evening breeze. Inside lived Daniel Carter. At 32 years old, Daniel was a high school history teacher. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't drive an expensive car. He didn't own a large house. But he possessed something many people spent their entire lives searching for: a genuinely kind heart. Every morning before school, he stopped at the same small bakery. The owner, Mrs. Collins, always greeted him with a smile. "The usual?" she asked. Daniel laughed. "You already know the answer. 1 coffee, 2 cinnamon rolls. 1 for himself, 1 for his wife." Her name was Sarah Mitchell Carter. She was 29, beautiful, intelligent, confident. The kind of woman who could walk into a crowded room and immediately become the center of attention. Daniel often joked that he had married far above his station. Sarah would simply smile and reply, "I married the only man who ever loved me for who I am." At least, that was what she always said. They had met 8 years earlier at the University of Northern Iowa. Daniel was studying history. Sarah majored in business administration. Their first meeting happened entirely by accident. Daniel dropped a stack of books outside the university library. Before he could pick them up, someone knelt beside him. "You dropped this," she said with a warm smile. It was Sarah. That simple moment changed both of their lives, or so Daniel believed. 2 years after graduation, they were married in a small white church on the edge of Cedar Falls. The ceremony wasn't expensive. Friends baked the wedding cake. Family members decorated the church themselves. Daniel couldn't afford a diamond necklace. Instead, he carved a small wooden jewelry box with his own hands. Inside the lid, he engraved 7 simple words: "Forever begins with honesty and love." When she opened it, she cried. Daniel believed they were tears of happiness. For the first few years, life was peaceful. Daniel taught history. Sarah worked as an office assistant for a local insurance company. Every Friday evening, they ordered pizza, watched old movies, and dreamed about buying a larger home someday. They weren't rich, but they were content. Or at least, Daniel was. Everything began to change in the spring of 1998. Sarah received an unexpected job offer. A marketing company based in Des Moines, nearly 2 hours away, wanted to hire her. The salary was almost double what she earned in Cedar Falls. Health insurance, travel allowances, opportunities for promotion. It sounded like the opportunity of a lifetime. Daniel encouraged her immediately. "You have to take it." Sarah looked uncertain. "But it's so far away." "We'll make it work," Daniel replied without hesitation. "I believe in you." She smiled. "Are you sure?" Daniel reached across the dinner table and held her hand. "I didn't marry you to keep you in one place. I married you so we could chase our dreams together." Sarah squeezed his hand tightly. At that moment, she truly loved him. Or, at least, she wanted to believe she did. 3 weeks later, Sarah began commuting to Des Moines. Some mornings she left before sunrise. Some evenings she returned long after dark. Daniel never complained. Instead, he prepared dinner, did the laundry, kept the house clean. Whenever Sarah apologized for coming home late, he always answered the same way: "I'm proud of you." Those words meant everything to Sarah. And yet, they slowly became something else, a reminder of the life she was beginning to outgrow. The new office was nothing like Cedar Falls. Tall glass buildings, busy streets, luxury restaurants, expensive suits, successful people. Sarah quickly discovered that in Des Moines,
No one knew anything about her past. No one asked whether she was married. It felt like a chance to become someone new. One afternoon, while attending her first company networking event, she stood alone near a table filled with coffee and pastries. She adjusted her name tag, Sarah Mitchell, not Sarah Mitchell Carter. She had removed her married surname, only because she thought it looked more professional. At least, that was the explanation she gave herself. Across the room, a tall man in a tailored navy suit noticed her. He smiled politely, picked up 2 cups of coffee, and slowly began walking towards her. His name was Michael Brooks. Neither of them realized that this simple conversation would become the first step toward a secret capable of destroying 3 lives.
The conference hall buzzed with quiet conversation. Business executives exchanged handshakes. Marketing managers discussed new projects. Waiters moved gracefully through the room carrying trays of coffee and pastries. For Sarah, everything still felt unfamiliar. She had never attended an event like this before. She stood alone near one of the large windows overlooking downtown Des Moines, watching the evening traffic below, trying not to look nervous. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "First networking event?" Sarah turned. The man standing beside her wore a tailored navy suit and carried 2 cups of coffee. He smiled warmly. "I guessed from the way you're watching the exits." Sarah laughed softly. "Was it that obvious?" "I'm Michael," he said, offering one of the coffees. "Michael Brooks." Sarah accepted it. Sarah Mitchell. For a brief moment, neither of them realized the importance of those 2 simple words. Sarah Mitchell, not Sarah Mitchell Carter. Michael smiled. "So, Sarah, what brought you to Des Moines?" "My new job," she replied. "I've only been here a few weeks." "And you?" Michael chuckled. "I own a commercial construction company." Sarah raised her eyebrow. "So you're the boss?" "I try not to advertise it," he joked. Their conversation continued effortlessly. They spoke about work, travel, books, small-town life. By the end of the evening, they had talked for nearly 2 hours, longer than Sarah had spoken with anyone outside her marriage in years. Back in Cedar Falls, Daniel waited patiently at home. The dinner that he had prepared sat untouched on the kitchen table. When Sarah finally arrived, it was almost 10 o'clock. She looked exhausted. "I'm sorry. The event lasted longer than expected." Daniel smiled. "That's all right. I kept your dinner warm." She looked at the table. "You cooked?" He nodded proudly. "Your favorite. Chicken parmesan, fresh bread, and homemade apple pie." Sarah smiled. "You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Daniel replied. As they ate together, Daniel asked about her evening. "Were the people nice?" Sarah nodded. "They were. Did you make any friends?" She hesitated, then answered casually, "A few." She never mentioned Michael, not because she was hiding anything, at least, not yet. For the following weeks, Sarah's responsibilities at work increased. So did the number of networking events, business dinners, client meetings, weekend seminars. Michael attended nearly all of them. Every time they met, conversation came easily. One evening after a meeting, Michael asked, "Would you like to grab dinner?" Sarah hesitated. "It's just dinner," he added with a smile. "Nothing formal." She thought about Daniel, waiting at home.
then looked at the crowded restaurant across the street. "Just 1 hour," she finally said. Michael smiled. 1 hour. Dinner stretched into 3. They talked about childhood dreams, career ambitions, family. Michael mentioned that he had never married. "I guess," he laughed quietly, "I was too busy building a business." "What about you?" he asked. Sarah felt her heart skip. For the briefest moment, she considered telling the truth. "I'm married." The words almost left her lips. Instead, she smiled faintly. "I've mostly focused on work." It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. Michael nodded. "I understand." That single unanswered question would later become the foundation of everything that followed. Back in Cedar Falls, Daniel noticed the changes. Sarah smiled less. She answered questions with fewer words. She often fell asleep while reading emails on her laptop. He blamed the new job. Anyone would be tired after commuting 4 hours every day. One Friday evening, Daniel surprised her with flowers. "I thought we could spend the weekend together." Sarah looked at the bouquet. "They're beautiful." "I'm sorry. I have another conference tomorrow." Daniel smiled faintly. "Oh, it can't wait?" She shook her head. "It's important." Daniel nodded. "Then go. We'll celebrate another weekend." She hugged him tightly. "Thank you for understanding." Daniel smiled. "I always will." As Sarah hugged him, a wave of guilt washed over her. He trusted her completely, and she knew it. The following Saturday, the conference ended earlier than expected. Michael looked towards Sarah. "I know a quiet cafe nearby. They make the best cheesecake in Iowa." Sarah laughed. "That's a bold claim." "You'll have to judge for yourself." She agreed. They spent the afternoon talking, laughing, sharing stories. As Sarah checked the time, nearly 5 hours had passed. She stared at her phone. 6 missed calls from Daniel. Her heart sank. She called immediately. Daniel answered on the first ring. "Hey," he said cheerfully. "I was just making sure you were all right. The weather forecast mentioned heavy storms." Sarah closed her eyes. "I'm fine. I lost track of time." Daniel laughed softly.
Autumn arrived early in Iowa. Golden leaves covered the sidewalks of Des Moines, and a cool breeze drifted through the busy downtown streets. For Sarah, life had quietly split into 2 different worlds. One world began every morning in Cedar Falls. A loving husband, a peaceful home, a simple life built on trust. The other existed in Des Moines. Elegant office buildings, business dinners, new opportunities, and a man who knew her only as Sarah Mitchell. Michael and Sarah continued seeing each other after work, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for dinner, sometimes simply walking through the city before heading home. Nothing inappropriate happened, not at first, but emotional distance has a strange way of growing long before physical distance does. One evening, Michael smiled as they crossed a bridge overlooking the river. "You know, I've never met anyone who understands me the way you do." Sarah looked away. "I've just been a good listener." He laughed. "It's more than that. You make life feel lighter." Those words stayed with Sarah during the entire drive back to Cedar Falls. Daniel noticed another change. Sarah had started smiling while reading messages on her phone. Whenever he entered the room, the screen quickly turned black.
He didn't think much of it. Everyone deserved privacy. At least, that's what he told himself. One Friday evening, he prepared a candlelight dinner. The table was beautifully decorated. Fresh flowers, soft music, 2 glasses of sparkling cider. Sarah arrived home nearly 3 hours late. She looked exhausted. "I'm so sorry. The client meeting ran long." Daniel smiled gently. "I understand." Even though dinner had gone cold, he reheated everything without a single complaint. As they ate, he quietly asked, "Are you happy at your new job?" Sarah hesitated. "I think so." "You think so?" Daniel asked. She forced a smile. "It's just different." He reached across the table and held her hand. "If it ever becomes too much, you don't have to keep doing it. We'll manage." Sarah felt tears form in her eyes. He was offering to sacrifice financial security just so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. The guilt inside her grew heavier. The following week, Sarah received exciting news. Her company promoted her to regional marketing director. The position required spending several nights each month in Des Moines. The salary increased again. When she told Daniel, he hugged her tightly. "I knew you could do it." Sarah smiled weakly. "Aren't you upset?" "Why would I be?" He laughed. "I'm married to the smartest woman I know." That night, Daniel celebrated by buying her favorite chocolate cake. He never realized the promotion also meant more time away from home and more time with Michael. One evening, after a successful business presentation, Michael invited Sarah to a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city skyline. The lights of Des Moines stretched endlessly below them. "It feels like the whole world is changing," Michael said. Sarah nodded. "It does." He looked at her thoughtfully. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah smiled. "Go ahead." "Why have I never heard you mention a boyfriend?" Sarah's heart skipped. For a long moment, she stared at the city lights. This was the moment. She could tell him everything. She could say, "I'm married." She could end the misunderstanding before it became something worse. Instead, she quietly answered, "I guess I've never met the right person." The words left her mouth before she could stop them. Michael smiled. "That's hard to believe." Sarah forced herself to smile back. Inside, she felt something break, because this wasn't silence anymore. It was a lie. Meanwhile, Daniel spent the weekend repairing the porch swing Sarah loved so much. He sanded the wood carefully, applied fresh paint, even carved a small heart under the seat, hidden where only they would know it existed. When Mrs. Wilson, the elderly neighbor, walked by, she smiled. "You're always fixing something." Daniel laughed. "I like taking care of the things I love." Mrs. Wilson looked towards the house. "Sarah's a lucky woman." Daniel smiled without hesitation. "No, I'm the lucky one." Late Sunday night, Sarah returned home carrying a new designer bag. Daniel noticed it immediately. "That's beautiful." She looked down at it. "Oh, it was a gift from the company." Daniel smiled. "You deserve nice things." She nodded. "Thank you." She didn't tell him that it wasn't from the company. It was a congratulatory gift from Michael, who still believed she was completely alone in the world. As Sarah carried the bag upstairs, she glanced at the family photograph hanging on the hallway wall. It showed her and Daniel on their wedding day, both smiling, both believing forever would be simple. She stopped for a moment, touched the edge of the frame, then quietly walked away. And downstairs, Daniel looked at that same photograph, smiled to himself, and whispered, "We're going to be all right." Neither of them realized that the lies had already become too large to hide forever.
October settled gently over Iowa. The mornings grew colder. Bright orange leaves covered the streets of Cedar Falls, while strong autumn winds carried them across the quiet neighborhoods. Inside the Carter home, life looked peaceful. Every evening, Daniel still waited for Sarah to come home. Some nights he cooked dinner. Other nights he simply sat on the porch swing he had repaired with his own hands, always believing she would walk through the front door with the same smile she once had. But that smile was becoming harder to find. In Des Moines, Sarah's career continued to grow. She attended conferences, met important clients, spent more evenings at business dinners. Michael was almost always there. To him, Sarah wasn't just another coworker. She had become the person he looked forward to seeing every day. One evening, after a successful meeting, they walked through a quiet city park. The fountains reflected the lights of downtown. Everything felt calm. Michael suddenly stopped walking. "Sarah." She turned. "Can I ask you something?" She smiled nervously. "Of course." He took a slow breath. "I think I've fallen in love with you." The world seemed to stand still. Sarah felt her heart pounding. She should have told him. She should have ended everything right there. Instead, she remained silent. Michael misunderstood her silence. "If you don't feel the same, I'll never bring it up again." Sarah looked into his eyes, then quietly whispered, "I don't know what to say." Michael smiled softly. "You don't have to answer tonight. I'll wait." Those words followed her all the way home. Back in Cedar Falls, Daniel was decorating the living room. Sarah's 30th birthday was only a week away. He invited her parents, his parents, several close friends. He even ordered a custom birthday cake. Mrs. Collins from the bakery smiled. "She's going to love this." Daniel laughed. "I hope so. I want this birthday to be unforgettable." Little did he know, it would be. Just not for the reasons he imagined. A few days later, Sarah's company organized a weekend retreat at a lakeside resort. Employees were encouraged to bring their partners. Michael immediately smiled. "You should come with me." Sarah's face turned pale. I'm not sure." He laughed. "Come on, everyone is bringing someone." She searched desperately for an excuse. "I have family plans." Michael nodded politely. "I understand." Then, after a short pause, he quietly asked, "Sarah, are you seeing someone else?" Her heart nearly stopped. She could still tell the truth. One honest sentence could end everything. Instead, she slowly shook her head. "No." Michael smiled with relief. "I was worried for a second." Sarah looked away. She had just told the biggest lie of her life. The following Saturday, Daniel's birthday surprise was ready. The house was filled with balloons, fresh flowers. Friends waited quietly in the living room. Everyone whispered, "She's going to be so surprised." Daniel checked his watch. 6 o'clock. Sarah should have been home. 6:30. Still nothing. 7 o'clock. Her phone finally rang. Daniel answered immediately. "Hey?" Sarah's voice sounded tired. "I'm so sorry. Our client meeting has been extended. I won't make it tonight." Daniel looked around the room, at the birthday cake, at the friends who slowly realized something was wrong. He forced himself to smile. "It's okay. We'll celebrate tomorrow." After the call ended, he quietly thanked everyone for coming. One by one, they left. Mrs. Collins gently squeezed his shoulder. "I'm sorry, Daniel." He smiled. "Work happens."
But once the house became empty, he sat alone beside the untouched birthday cake. The candles had never been lit. At that very same moment, Sarah wasn't in a meeting. She was sitting beside a peaceful lake with Michael. The company retreat had ended hours earlier. Most employees had already gone home. The sun slowly disappeared behind the water. Michael looked at Sarah. "I've never been happier than I am with you." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes, not because she was happy, because she knew every passing day was making the truth harder to survive. Michael gently reached for her hand. This time, she didn't pull away. Far away in Cedar Falls, Daniel quietly wrapped Sarah's birthday present, a beautiful silver necklace. Inside the box, he placed a handwritten note. "No matter where life takes us, you'll always be my greatest blessing." As he turned off the living room lights, he looked out the window, still believing the woman he loved was simply working late. He had no idea that on the other side of Iowa, his wife had just crossed a line from which there would be no easy return.
A cold November wind swept across Iowa. The trees stood nearly bare now, their last golden leaves scattered across quiet streets. In Cedar Falls, Daniel Carter still woke before sunrise every morning. He still packed Sarah's lunch whenever she stayed home. He still kissed her goodbye before leaving for school. And every single day, he believed his marriage was simply going through a difficult season. He never imagined that the storm had already begun. After the company retreat, everything between Sarah and Michael changed. They no longer met only after work. Now they made plans together. Weekend lunches, evening walks, business trips that lasted a little longer than necessary. Sarah kept telling herself the same thing. "I'm only confused. I just need time." But deep inside, she knew she had already made choices she could never undo. One Friday evening, Michael invited Sarah to dinner at one of the finest restaurants in Des Moines. Soft piano music filled the room. Candles flickered on every table. The atmosphere was elegant and quiet. Halfway through the meal, Michael reached into his jacket pocket. He placed a small velvet box on the table. Sarah stared at it. "Michael," he smiled nervously, "it's not what you think." She slowly opened it. Inside was a simple gold necklace with a tiny sapphire pendant. Nothing extravagant, just beautiful. "I saw it last week," he said softly. "It reminded of your eyes." Sarah closed the velvet box. "I can't accept this." Michael looked disappointed. "Why?" Sarah searched for an answer, any answer. "It just doesn't feel right." Michael nodded respectfully. "I understand." He slipped the box back into his pocket. But before leaving the restaurant, he quietly said, "One day, I hope you'll let me give it to you." Back in Cedar Falls, Daniel was preparing another surprise. Their wedding anniversary was only 2 weeks away. He had secretly saved money for months. This year, he wanted to take Sarah to Chicago for a long weekend, a small hotel, a Broadway show, a carriage ride through the city. He smiled as he folded the travel brochure. "This year," he whispered, "we'll finally have time together." The following Monday, Sarah received another promotion. This time, she would become Director of Business Development. The position required frequent travel across the Midwest. When she shared the news with Daniel, he looked happier than she did. "This is incredible." He hugged her tightly. "I'm proud of you." She rested her head against his shoulder.
"I'm sorry." He looked confused. "For what?" She forced a smile. "For being away so much." Daniel gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You're building your future, our future. I'll never stand in your way." His kindness felt almost unbearable. A week later, Michael invited Sarah to visit a luxury home development his company had just completed. As they walked through the beautiful model house, he smiled. "I've always imagined living somewhere like this." Large windows overlooked a peaceful lake. The kitchen was filled with sunlight. A fireplace stood in the center of the living room. Michael looked at Sarah. "It feels like a home." She nodded quietly. "It does." He hesitated, then finally asked, "Sarah, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?" Her heart raced. She didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, she no longer knew. One future waited in Cedar Falls, with Daniel, a man who loved her without conditions. Another future stood beside her, with Michael, a man who believed she was completely free. She was living between two lives, and sooner or later, one of them would collapse. And that same evening, Daniel arrived home carrying a bouquet of white lilies. Sarah smiled weakly. "What are those for?" He laughed. "Do I need a reason? I saw them and thought of you." She accepted the flowers. Her hands trembled. Daniel noticed. "Everything okay?" She nodded quickly. "Just tired." He smiled. "Then I'll make dinner tonight." As he walked toward the kitchen, Sarah looked down at the lilies. Fresh, beautiful, pure. She suddenly realized she wasn't simply keeping a secret anymore. She was living a lie. And in another part of Des Moines, Michael stood in the empty living room of the lakeside house, looking at the unopened velvet box still resting on the table. He smiled to himself. "One day, I'll ask her to marry me." He had no idea she was already someone else's wife.
Winter arrived early in Iowa. A light snowfall covered the streets of Cedar Falls, turning rooftops and front yards into a quiet blanket of white. Inside the Carter home, the fireplace glowed softly. Christmas decorations filled every corner of the living room. Daniel had spent the entire weekend hanging lights around the porch. He smiled as he stepped back to admire them. "Perfect," he whispered. He couldn't wait to surprise Sarah. Sarah arrived home just after sunset. Snow covered her coat. She looked exhausted. Daniel greeted her with a warm smile. "Merry Christmas, a little early." She laughed softly. "You decorated everything." "I wanted you to come home to something beautiful," he replied. She looked around the room. The Christmas tree, the candles, the stockings hanging above the fireplace. Everything reminded her of the life she was slowly destroying. 2 days later, Sarah traveled back to Des Moines for another business conference. The event lasted 3 days. Michael attended every session. On the final evening, the company hosted an elegant Christmas gala. Men wore tuxedos. Women wore evening gowns. Soft orchestra music filled the ballroom. Michael found Sarah standing alone near one of the windows. "You look beautiful tonight." She smiled politely. "Thank you." He hesitated for a moment, then quietly said, "I've been wanting to ask you something." Sarah's heart began to race. Michael reached into his jacket. This time, not the small velvet jewelry box, a much smaller one. He slowly opened it. Inside rested a simple diamond ring. The ballroom around them seemed to disappear. "Sarah Mitchell," he said softly. "I know we haven't known each other forever, but I've never been more certain about anyone. I love you. Will you marry me?" The first week of January arrived with freezing temperatures across Iowa. Snow covered the highways between Cedar Falls and Des Moines. The long commute became slower, harder, more dangerous. But Sarah hardly noticed. Her thoughts were consumed by one terrifying reality. Daniel wanted to move to Des Moines. If that happened, everything she had hidden for months would eventually be exposed. There would be no escape, no excuses, no second identity. Daniel had never looked happier. Every evening, he searched online for teaching positions in Des Moines. He printed school listings, compared neighborhoods, even calculated how much money they could save by selling their house in Cedar Falls. One evening, he spread several papers across the kitchen table. "Look at this," he said excitedly. Sarah forced a smile. "What is it?" "It's a beautiful neighborhood just outside downtown. The schools are excellent, and your office would only be 15 minutes away." Sarah stared silently at the photographs. The neighborhood looked familiar, too familiar. It was less than 5 miles from Michael's home. She felt the color drain from her face. Daniel noticed. "You don't like it?" "No," she answered quickly. "I just wasn't expecting everything to happen so fast." Daniel reached across the table. "I only want us together again. I miss my wife." Those words broke something inside her. Meanwhile, Michael had plans of his own. One Saturday afternoon, he invited Sarah to the lakeside house. Fresh snow covered the yard. The fireplace warmed the quiet living room. Everything looked peaceful. He handed her a small envelope. Inside were architectural drawings. "What are these?" she asked. "Our future," he replied with a hopeful smile. "I've been thinking about adding another room." She looked confused. "Another room?" He nodded. "Yes, for children." Sarah froze. Michael continued smiling. "I know we're not engaged yet, but someday I'd like to have a family." His words echoed painfully in her mind. She already had a family, a husband, a home, a marriage. Only Michael didn't know any of it. That evening, Sarah drove back to Cedar Falls through heavy snowfall. Her windshield wipers struggled against the storm. She kept asking herself the same question. How did everything become so complicated? She remembered Daniel's kindness, Michael's honesty, and her own growing web of lies. For the first time, she considered ending everything, not her life, the deception. She would tell them both the truth. No more pretending, no more secrets. But fear whispered louder than courage. "Tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow." The next morning, Daniel surprised Sarah with breakfast in bed. Fresh pancakes, coffee, orange juice. He smiled proudly. "Happy Saturday." She looked at him in disbelief. "You woke up early just for this?" He laughed. "I wanted to spoil my favorite person." She could barely hold back tears. He noticed. "What's wrong?" She quickly wiped her eyes. "Nothing. I'm just lucky." Daniel smiled. "No, I'm the lucky one." She looked away. She knew he believed every word. A few days later, Sarah attended another corporate dinner in Des Moines. Halfway through the evening, Michael introduced her to one of his oldest friends. "This is David." David smiled warmly. "It's nice to finally meet you. Michael talks about you all the time." Sarah forced a polite smile. "Nice to meet you." David laughed. "So when's the wedding?" Sarah nearly dropped her glass. Michael looked embarrassed. "I haven't even received an answer yet." Everyone laughed, except Sarah. For the rest of the evening, she barely spoke. Later that night, Michael walked her to her car.
Snowflakes drifted gently through the cold air. He looked at her seriously. "Sarah, have I done something wrong?" She shook her head. "No." "Then why do you seem so distant lately?" She searched for words. "I've just been under a lot of pressure." Michael nodded. "I understand." Then he gently took her hand. "I don't care how long it takes, I'll wait. But I need to know one thing." He looked directly into her eyes. "Are you hiding something from me?" Time seemed to stop. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Sarah opened her mouth. The truth stood at the edge of her lips. Then she whispered the one word that would haunt her forever. "No." Michael smiled with relief. "I knew I could trust you." Sarah closed her eyes. That single lie was the final brick in the wall she had built around herself. And walls built on lies never stand forever. Far away in Cedar Falls, Daniel opened the mailbox before leaving for work. Inside was an official letter from the Des Moines School District. His hands trembled with excitement. He tore open the envelope. After reading the first line, a huge smile spread across his face. He had been accepted. In just 6 weeks, Daniel Carter would begin teaching history in Des Moines. Without realizing it, he had just taken the first step towards discovering the truth that would change all 3 of their lives forever.
6 weeks. That was all the time Sarah had left. Just 6 weeks before Daniel would begin teaching in Des Moines. 6 weeks before her 2 worlds could collide. 6 weeks before the lies she had spent nearly a year protecting would become impossible to hide. For the first time since everything had begun, she was truly afraid. Daniel couldn't stop smiling. He had already accepted the teaching position. Every evening after work, he searched for houses in Des Moines. He even started packing books into cardboard boxes. One night, he carried a heavy box into the living room. Sarah looked up from the sofa. "What are you doing?" He laughed. "Getting a head start. We're moving soon." She stared silently at the box labeled history books. Daniel noticed her expression. "You're not excited." She forced a smile. "I am. I'll miss Cedar Falls." Daniel nodded. "So will I. But home isn't a town." He gently took her hand. "It's wherever we're together." Sarah couldn't answer. The following Monday, Sarah asked her manager for a private meeting. "I need to reduce my travel schedule." Her manager looked surprised. "I thought you enjoyed traveling." She replied quietly, "My family needs me." Her manager nodded. "We'll see what we can do." As Sarah left the office, she felt hopeful for the first time in months. Maybe, if she ended things with Michael now, she could still save her marriage. That evening, Michael called. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow?" Sarah closed her eyes. "We need to talk." His voice became serious. "Is everything all right?" "I'd rather tell you in person." There was a long silence. Finally, Michael answered softly. "Okay." The next evening, they met at the same small cafe where they had shared their first dinner together. Rain tapped gently against the windows. Neither of them smiled. Michael looked concerned. "You frightened me." Sarah took a deep breath. "I haven't been honest with you." Those words hung between them. Michael remained silent. She looked down at her hands. "There are things about my life that you don't know." Before she could continue, her phone suddenly rang. "Daniel." She stared at the screen. Michael noticed. "You can answer." She hesitated, then picked up the call. "Hi." Daniel sounded excited. "I've got great news." "What happened?" "I found the perfect house. 3 bedrooms, a beautiful backyard, and it's only 15 minutes from your office." Sarah closed her eyes. "That's wonderful." "I knew you'd love it." Daniel laughed. "We're driving to Des Moines this Saturday to see it." Her heart stopped. "This Saturday?" "Yes, I've already arranged everything. You'll finally get to show me the city you've been talking about." Sarah could barely breathe. I'll call you later." After the call ended, she slowly placed the phone on the table. Michael looked at her carefully.
you seem upset," she whispered. "My life is about to fall apart." Michael reached across the table. "What do you mean?" Sarah looked into his eyes. This was the moment. No more excuses, no more delays. She opened her mouth. Before another word could leave her lips, the cafe television switched to breaking news. A massive snowstorm warning had been issued for central Iowa. Customers turned toward the screen. The distraction lasted only a minute, but for Sarah, it was enough. Fear returned. She quietly stood. "I'm sorry, I can't do this tonight." Michael looked confused. "Sarah," she grabbed her coat. "I promise I'll explain soon." Then she hurried out into the rain, leaving Michael sitting alone, more confused than ever. Saturday morning arrived. Daniel loaded their luggage into the car. He smiled like a man beginning a new chapter of his life. "Ready?" Sarah forced herself to nod. The drive to Des Moines felt endless. Every mile brought them closer to disaster. As they entered the city, Daniel looked around with excitement. "So this is where you've been working?" She smiled weakly. "It is." They visited the new house. It was beautiful, exactly the kind of home Daniel had always dreamed of. "This is perfect," he whispered. "I can already imagine our future here." Sarah looked around, then suddenly froze. Across the street, parked outside a nearby coffee shop, was a familiar black Mercedes, Michael's car. Her heart began racing. Daniel noticed her expression. "What's wrong?" She quickly looked away. Nothing. But she knew. For the first time, the distance between her two lives had disappeared. And somewhere nearby, completely unaware, Michael Brooks stepped out of the coffee shop carrying 2 cups. One of them was meant for Sarah.
A cold wind swept through the quiet streets of Des Moines. Sarah stood frozen beside the driveway of the house Daniel hoped to buy. Across the street, Michael stepped out of the coffee shop. 2 cups of coffee rested in his hands. One was black. The other prepared exactly the way Sarah always liked it. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear Daniel speaking. "Sarah?" He smiled. "What do you think?" She forced herself to look away from the coffee shop. "It's beautiful." Daniel wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "I knew you'd love it." Across the street, Michael looked toward the neighborhood. His eyes searched the sidewalks. He had planned to surprise Sarah. She had sounded so upset during their last conversation. He wanted to cheer her up. Instead, he saw something unexpected. A woman standing beside a man. The woman looked strangely familiar. Michael narrowed his eyes, then smiled to himself. "That looks like Sarah." But before he could wave, a delivery truck passed between them. By the time it moved on, Daniel and Sarah had already walked inside the house. Michael shrugged. It couldn't have been her. He quietly drove away. Sarah never realized they had come within seconds of meeting. Inside the house, a real estate agent welcomed them warmly. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter?" Daniel smiled proudly. "That's us." Those simple words echoed painfully inside Sarah's mind. Mrs. Carter, the name she had stopped using in Des Moines. The agent led them through each room. The bright kitchen, the spacious living room, the upstairs bedrooms. Finally, they reached a small room overlooking the backyard. Daniel smiled. "I'd like this to become a nursery someday." Sarah looked at him in silence. He wasn't just planning a move, he was planning their future. A future built on trust. Trust she had already broken. On the drive home, neither spoke very much. Daniel assumed Sarah was tired. She was, but not from traveling. She was exhausted from pretending. Halfway back to Cedar Falls, she quietly said, "Daniel?" "Yes?"
I need to tell you something." He glanced at her briefly. "What is it?" Her hands tightened around the seatbelt. The words were there, ready. "I've lied to you. I've been seeing someone else. You deserve the truth." Instead, she looked out the window. "It's nothing." Daniel laughed softly. "You scared me." She closed her eyes. She had failed again. The following Monday, Michael visited Sarah's office. She looked surprised to see him. "What are you doing here?" He smiled. "I wanted to check on you. You left so suddenly the other night." She lowered her voice. "We shouldn't talk here." He frowned. "Why not?" "My coworkers," she searched for another excuse, "are very curious." Michael nodded. "I understand. Would you have dinner with me tonight?" Sarah hesitated, then quietly answered, "No." He looked genuinely hurt. "No? I need some space." "For how long?" "I don't know." Michael stared at her. For the first time since they'd met, she saw fear in his eyes. Not uncertainty, fear. That evening, Daniel found Sarah alone sitting on the porch. She watched snowflakes drift silently through the air. He sat beside her. "I've been thinking." "What about?" "Our 10th anniversary is next month." She smiled faintly. "I almost forgot." Daniel laughed. "I didn't." He reached into his coat pocket, then handed her a small envelope. Inside were reservations for a weekend cabin in the mountains. No phones, no work, just us. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Daniel smiled. "I want my wife back." She could no longer hold back her emotions. She leaned forward and hugged him tightly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Daniel gently held her. "You don't have to apologize. We've both been busy." He had no idea. She wasn't apologizing for being busy. She was apologizing for betraying the man who had never stopped loving her. Later that same night, Michael sat alone inside his lakeside house. The engagement ring still rested inside the small velvet box. He picked it up, looked at it for a long time, then quietly placed it back in the drawer. Something didn't feel right anymore. Sarah had changed. She avoided his calls, canceled dinners, refused to discuss the future. He walked to the window, looking out over the frozen lake, then whispered to himself, "What are you hiding from me?" At that exact moment, miles away, Sarah opened a drawer in her bedroom. Inside lay 2 photographs. One showed her wedding day with Daniel. The other had been taken only weeks earlier at a company gala, standing beside Michael. She looked from one photograph to the other, then slowly began to cry, because she finally understood one painful truth. Soon, she wouldn't lose just one man. She was about to lose them both.
February arrived with bitter winds and heavy snow across Iowa. The roads between Cedar Falls and Des Moines became difficult to travel. But Sarah continued making the drive, not because she wanted to, because she felt trapped. Every mile reminded her that she belonged to 2 different lives, and soon, neither would belong to her. Daniel was counting down the days until their 10th wedding anniversary. He had secretly arranged everything: the mountain cabin, a horse-drawn sleigh ride, a candlelit dinner, even a photographer to capture new memories together. He wanted the weekend to feel like a second honeymoon. One evening, while wrapping a small gift, he smiled to himself. "This time, I'm going to ask her to marry me all over again." He had bought a new wedding band, simple, elegant.
Inside, it was engraved with the same words from the wooden jewelry box he had carved years earlier. Forever begins with honesty and love. In Des Moines, Maxwell finally reached a decision. He could no longer live with uncertainty. He called Sarah. "We need to talk." His voice was calm, but serious. Sarah closed her eyes. "I know." "Tomorrow evening?" She nodded instinctively before remembering he couldn't see her. "Yes." The next evening, they met at the quiet lakeside house. Snow covered the frozen water. The fireplace crackled softly inside. Neither of them smiled. Maxwell looked at Sarah for a long moment, then quietly asked, "Do you love me?" The question hung in the silent room. Sarah answered honestly, "I care about you." He shook his head gently. "That's not what I asked." She lowered her eyes. Maxwell stepped closer. "Sarah, I've been patient. I've waited. I've respected your space. But I can't build a future with someone who keeps shutting me out." He paused, then asked the question that changed everything. "Are you married?" Sarah's entire body went still. For several seconds, she couldn't breathe. She realized something terrifying. Maxwell wasn't guessing anymore. He had noticed too many inconsistencies. The evenings she disappeared, the weekends she was unavailable, the way she never invited him to her home, the way she avoided every conversation about her past. He already suspected the truth. This was her final chance. She looked into his eyes. Tears slowly filled hers. Then she whispered, "Yes." Silence. Complete silence. Maxwell stared at her as if he hadn't heard correctly. "What? What did you say?" "I'm married," she repeated. "I've been married for 10 years. The color drained from Maxwell's face. He took several steps backwards. "No. No. You told me. You said you'd never met the right person." Sarah covered her face with her hands. "I know. I lied." Maxwell's voice cracked. "Every day?" She nodded. "Every single day." For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Maxwell looked at Sarah with tears in his eyes. "Does he know about me?" Sarah whispered, "No." Maxwell laughed bitterly. "So, I'm not just the other man. I'm the fool." She shook her head desperately. "No, you didn't know. I never wanted to hurt you." He looked at her in disbelief. "You had a husband? You let me fall in love with you? You let me dream about a future that never existed." His voice broke completely. "And you say you never wanted to hurt me?" Sarah couldn't answer, because there was no answer. Maxwell slowly walked toward the fireplace. He opened the drawer beside it, removed the small velvet box. The engagement ring still sparkled under the warm firelight. He looked at it quietly, then closed the box. Without another word, he placed it into Sarah's hands. "I bought this because I believed you," he said softly. "I trusted every word you told me." He looked at her one last time. "I don't hate you, but I don't know who you are anymore." He walked to the front door, opened it. Cold winter air rushed inside. Before leaving, he stopped without turning around. "You have one chance left. Tell your husband. If he hears the truth from someone else, you'll lose everything." The door closed behind her. Sarah stood alone, holding the engagement ring that should never have existed. That same night, Daniel sat at the kitchen table in Cedar Falls. He was writing a letter to Sarah, not because he had to, simply because he wanted her to have something she could keep forever. He smiled as he wrote the final sentence. "No matter what life brings us, thank you for choosing me every day." He folded the letter carefully, placed it inside an envelope, and wrote on the front, "For my beautiful wife." At that exact moment, miles away, Sarah collapsed onto the floor, holding her face in her hands. For the first time, there were no more lies left to tell Maxwell. Only one person remained: Daniel, the man's heart, who was about to be broken forever.
The following morning, Sarah didn't go to work. For the first time in nearly a year, she simply sat alone in the living room of the Cedar Falls house. The silence felt unbearable. On the coffee table lay two things: Daniel's unopened letter and Michael's engagement ring. One represented the life she had built. The other, the life she had nearly destroyed everything to chase. She stared at them for hours, unable to touch either. Daniel noticed immediately that something was wrong. "You don't look well," he said gently as he placed a cup of tea in front of her. "I'm fine," she whispered. He smiled softly. "You know, you never have to pretend with me. If something is hurting you, we'll face it together." Those words cut deeper than any accusation could have. She wanted to tell him, she truly did, but every time she imagined the look on his face, her courage disappeared. Later that afternoon, Sarah received a text message. It was from Michael. There were only 6 words. "Did you tell him the truth?" She stared at the screen, then slowly typed, "Not yet." A minute later, another message appeared. "Please don't wait too long." There were no angry words, no insults, only disappointment. Somehow, that hurt even more. 3 days passed. Sarah avoided Michael completely. She ignored every call, every message, every email. She told herself it was over, that ending the affair quietly would protect everyone. But secrets don't disappear simply because we stop talking about them. Friday evening arrived. Daniel smiled as he carried 2 suitcases to the front door. "Ready?" Sarah looked confused. "For what?" He laughed. "Our anniversary weekend, the mountain cabin. I've been talking about it for weeks." She had completely forgotten. The guilt nearly overwhelmed her. She forced a smile. "I'm ready." The drive through the snowy mountains was peaceful. Soft music played on the radio. Daniel held her hand whenever the road was clear. Neither spoke very much. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "Can I ask you something?" She nodded. "Of course." He smiled gently. "Are you happy?" The question echoed inside the quiet car. She wanted to answer honestly. Instead, she whispered, "I don't know." Daniel was surprised. "You don't know?" She shook her head. "I haven't known for a long time." Daniel remained silent for several miles, then quietly said, "I thought it was my fault." She turned to him. "What do you mean?" "I thought I worked too much. I thought I left you alone too often. I kept telling myself, if I loved you better, you'd smile the way you used to." Tears filled Sarah's eyes. Daniel had spent months blaming himself for choices that were never his. They arrived at the cabin just before sunset. It was beautiful.
a quiet wooden lodge surrounded by snow-covered pine trees. Inside, a fire was already burning. Candles lit the dining table. Everything had been prepared perfectly. Daniel disappeared into the bedroom for a moment. When he returned, he was holding a small velvet box. Sarah immediately recognized it. Another ring. He smiled nervously. "I know this might sound silly, but after 10 years, I'd like to ask you again." He slowly knelt on one knee. "Sarah Mitchell Carter, you've been the greatest blessing of my life. I know we've had difficult times, but I believe we can find each other again." He opened the box. Inside rested a beautiful new wedding band. "Will you marry me again?" Sarah burst into tears. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't speak. Daniel looked worried. "Sarah?" She slowly stepped backward, shaking her head. "I can't." The words echoed through the cabin. Daniel's smile disappeared. "What do you mean?" She looked at him through tears. For the first time, there was nowhere left to hide. She took a slow, trembling breath and finally said the words she had feared for nearly a year. "Daniel, I've been living a lie." The fire crackled softly in the background. Outside, snow continued falling in complete silence. Inside that small mountain cabin, everything Daniel believed about his marriage was about to change forever.
The fire crackled softly inside the mountain cabin. Outside, snow fell silently beneath a sky filled with stars. Inside, time itself seemed to stop. Daniel remained on one knee. The wedding band was still in his trembling hand. He looked at Sarah, unable to understand what he had just heard. "You've been living a lie?" His voice was barely above a whisper. Sarah nodded. Tears streamed down her face. "Yes." Daniel slowly stood. He carefully placed the ring back inside its velvet box, then sat quietly in the chair beside the fireplace. He didn't shout. He didn't throw anything. He simply stared into the flames. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The snow continued falling through the night. Daniel walked alone beneath the tall pine trees surrounding the mountain cabin. The cold air stung his face, but he barely noticed. His mind replayed the last 10 years over and over again. Their first meeting at the university, their wedding day, the small white house in Cedar Falls, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the promises. Had any of it been real? Or had he been the only one living inside that dream? Inside the cabin, Sarah remained exactly where he had left her. She stared into the dying fire. The silence felt heavier than any words. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of losing Michael. She wasn't afraid of being exposed. She was afraid that she had permanently broken the heart of the only man who had ever loved her without asking for anything in return. She quietly opened her purse. Inside was Michael's engagement ring. She looked at it for several seconds, then walked to the fireplace. Without hesitation, she dropped the velvet box into the flames. The fire slowly consumed it. She whispered through tears, "Goodbye," not just to Michael, but to the life built on lies. Nearly 2 hours later, the cabin door opened. Daniel stepped inside. His coat was covered with snow. His hands were freezing. He quietly removed his gloves and hung them beside the door. Sarah stood immediately. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Daniel nodded slowly. "I know." Neither of them moved. Finally, Daniel sat beside the fireplace. He noticed the ashes. "What did you burn?" Sarah looked into the fire. "The engagement ring." Daniel remained silent. She continued, "I wanted to keep it once. Tonight, I realized it represented everything I wished I had never done." For several minutes, the only sound was the crackling fire. Then Daniel quietly asked, "Why?" Sarah looked confused. "What why? Why didn't you simply leave me? If you weren't happy, I would have let you go." Tears filled her eyes again. "I never stopped loving you," she answered honestly. "I was lonely. I felt invisible. Then someone came into my life who made me feel noticed again." She lowered her head. "But instead of talking to you, I escaped into a lie." Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he spoke softly. "I failed too." Sarah looked up in surprise. He continued, "I thought paying the bills, working overtime, and building a better future was the same as being present." He smiled sadly. "I was standing beside you, but I wasn't always with you." Sarah shook her head immediately. "No, Daniel, don't blame yourself. The affair was my choice. My lies were my choice. You never deserved this." Daniel nodded. "I know, and you have to carry that responsibility. But if we're being completely honest tonight, we both stopped talking long before you met Michael." Those words struck Sarah deeply because they were true. Their marriage hadn't collapsed in a single day. It had slowly drifted apart, conversation by conversation, silence by silence. As dawn approached, the first rays of sunlight entered the cabin. Neither of them had slept. Finally, Daniel stood. He walked to the window and then quietly said, "I can't forgive you today." Sarah lowered her eyes. "I understand." He turned toward her. "But I don't want to make the biggest decision of my life on the worst day of my life." She looked at him hopefully. "What does that mean?" Daniel took a long breath. "It means when we go home, I'm moving into the guest room. We'll tell our families we're taking time apart, and then we'll decide whether our marriage can survive the truth." Sarah nodded through tears. She knew she had no right to ask for more. The drive back to Cedar Falls was completely silent. The snow had stopped, the roads were clear, but neither of them noticed the beautiful winter landscape, because both were wondering the same thing. Can a marriage survive after trust has been broken? Neither of them knew the answer, but waiting back in Cedar Falls was one final truth. One truth that neither Daniel or Sarah expected. A truth
that would change everything once again.
The drive back to Cedar Falls was silent. The snow-covered fields stretched endlessly on both sides of the highway. Neither Daniel nor Sarah turned on the radio. Neither reached for the other's hand. The silence between them was no longer filled with lies. It was filled with truth. And truth can be heavier than any secret. Over the next several weeks, they lived in the same house, but in different rooms. Daniel moved into the small guest bedroom. Every morning they shared coffee at the kitchen table. They spoke politely about groceries, bills, the weather. Nothing more. At night, the hallway between their bedrooms felt longer than ever before. One afternoon, Daniel received an unexpected visitor, Michael Brooks. He stood quietly on the front porch, holding a plain white envelope. Daniel opened the door. "Can I help you?" Michael looked nervous. "My name is Michael Brooks. I think we should talk." For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then Daniel stepped aside. "Come in." They sat across from each other in the living room. Michael placed the envelope on the table. "I didn't come here to defend myself," he said quietly. "I came to apologize." Daniel looked at him. "You didn't know she was married?" Michael nodded. "No. If I had known, I would have walked away the very first day." He pushed the envelope toward Daniel. Inside were dozens of printed emails, receipts, and messages. "I wanted you to know everything. I don't want there to be any more secrets between us." Daniel slowly looked through the papers. Every message ended the same way. Whenever Michael spoke about marriage or asked to meet Sarah's family, she avoided the conversation. He realized something important. Michael had not been trying to steal his wife. He had been deceived too. Daniel closed the envelope, then looked at Michael. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For the pain you didn't deserve." Michael's eyes filled with tears. "I lost someone I thought loved me." Daniel nodded sadly. "And I nearly lost my marriage." For a brief moment, the two men simply sat in silence, not as enemies, but as two people hurt by the same lie. Before leaving, Michael stood. "I've accepted a job in Seattle. I'm leaving next week." Daniel quietly nodded. "I hope you find peace." Michael managed a small smile. "I hope you do too." Then he walked away. They never saw each other again. That evening, Daniel found Sarah sitting alone on the back porch. She looked up. "Was that Michael?" Daniel nodded. "Yes." She lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." Daniel sat beside her. "I know." After a long silence, he asked, "If I choose to stay, if I choose to try again, will there ever be another secret?" Sarah met his eyes. "No, never again. I've learned that one lie always demands another, and eventually they become impossible to carry." Daniel studied her face. For the first time in many months, he saw no fear, no excuses, only honesty. Spring arrived in Cedar Falls. The snow melted. Flowers returned. Life slowly moved forward. Daniel and Sarah began seeing a marriage counselor together. The process wasn't easy.
Some sessions ended in tears, others ended in silence. But little by little, they learned to speak honestly again, not because the past had disappeared, but because they refused to let it control the future. Trust wasn't rebuilt in a week or a month. It took years. Small promises kept consistently. Small acts of kindness repeated every day. 5 years later, the little white house on Maple Street looked much the same. Fresh flowers lined the porch. The old wooden swing still moved gently in the evening breeze. Daniel sat beside Sarah, watching the sunset. She quietly reached for his hand. This time, he held it without hesitation. She whispered, "Thank you." He smiled gently. "For what?" "For giving me the chance to become an honest person again." Daniel looked toward the horizon. "I didn't stay because forgetting was easy. I stayed because forgiveness was stronger than bitterness." They sat together in comfortable silence. The past could never be erased, but it no longer ruled their lives. Sometimes, the greatest act of love isn't pretending nothing happened. It's choosing every single day to rebuild what was broken, with truth instead of lies. As the sun disappeared beyond the Iowa fields, Daniel squeezed Sarah's hand, and together they faced the future. The end.